Hey everybody, it's time to build a PC. Welcome to the middle of nowhere. The goal for this build is to make an upper mid-tier PC that can game, stream, and do content creation all for under $1,600. Since component prices and availability have been all over the place this year, I've bought items as they became available or were on sale. Believe it or not, even with the graphics card I'm using in this build, I was able to stick to my budget. If you're interested in any of these components I'm going to talk about, I'll leave links in the description. Now let's go over the parts. Because Ryzen 3600 CPUs have become harder and harder to find at MSRP, I decided to go with a 5600X for this build. I know this can be a controversial part because the price to performance isn't all there, but if you keep a lookout, you might find this CPU on sale for $249 or $50 under the $299 MSRP. Having said that, if you save a little, you can get a 5800X for $349.99 at the time of this video, which makes going with the 5600X very hard to swallow. The 5600X has 6 cores and 12 threads, which is enough to drive many a demanding game. You'll also have no problem streaming at the same time. It's also a good workhorse for content creation. Instead of relying on the 5600X's stock CPU cooler, I thought I'd give the 𝐓𝐡𝐞 CPU cooler a try. It's well regarded by users and known tech tubers alike. It's inexpensive, performs well, and it also tends to go on sale a lot. So keep an eye out for it if you're looking to replace your stock CPU cooler. It comes in black or white, and I'll be using the white version. If the CPU is the brains, then the motherboard is the nervous system. And driving that for this PC is the Gigabyte B550M Aorus Pro P. It's an MATX motherboard with quite a lot of features for not a lot of money. Current prices as of this video put it at around $144.99, but I've seen it go for as low as $129.99. It has a robust rear I/O with plenty of USB ports, loads of internal connectivity, a 2.5 gigabit per second LAN port, and USB Type-C on the back, as well as PCIe 4.0 capabilities for your GPU and one of the 2 NVMe slots. The only things missing are an internal Type-C header for the case and troubleshooting LEDs. Other than that, it's a nifty little board with a 10+2 phase power delivery. For the RAM, I'm sticking to the tried and true 16 gigabyte capacity of DDR4 3600 CL16. This is an affordable speed, but this time I'm going RGB. I went with the Crucial Ballistics kit and was able to find this particular kit on sale for around $84, which is fantastic considering most RGB RAM kits start at around $90 to $95 or more. RAM prices have been fluctuating all year, so keep an eye out as a sale can happen at any time. I will say, if you are dabbling in content creation, you may want to consider going with 32 gigabytes of RAM at a minimum instead of 16. Storage for this build is going to be very simple. I'm using a 1TB NVMe PCIe 3.0 SSD. It's the WD Black NVMe. This is WD's first NVMe drive that came out before the SN750. While it's an older model, it still performs very well. If you want to be current, I recommend going with WD's newer SN750 that I previously mentioned, or if you can afford the PCIe 4.0 option, the SN850. Crucial's P5 Plus is also a very good and affordable PCIe 4.0 option. Of course, if you have all the monies, look at Samsung's 980 Pro. While 1TB of storage isn't a lot in the grand scheme of things, it's enough to get this rig off the ground with the OS, some games, and key programs. Of course, whoever ends up owning this build will definitely want to expand the storage. As an affordable option, I recommend either Crucial's MX500 1TB SATA SSD, which usually hovers around the $90 to $100 mark, or if you're fine with a platter hard drive, I recommend the 2TB Seagate Barracuda, which you can find for around $50. Ever since I saw the Dark Flash DLM 21 Micro ATX case, I wanted to get it to have a look at it. Unfortunately, everywhere I have looked, it's been sold out. Fortunately though, I found one on eBay through the Dark Flash store there. It's a refurbished version, but that's okay. I wanted this mesh model because it's very reminiscent of the Fractal Design Meshify case series, but it costs much less. Of course, this decreased price also comes with less features. For one, it's an MATX case, so only MATX or smaller motherboards will fit in it. It also comes with no fans, has no grommets for cable management, and the PCI slot covers are not reusable. In fact, I'm missing 2. The front I/O also doesn't have a Type-C header, but does have 2 USB 2.0 ports and 1 USB 3.2 Gen 1 port. The power and reset buttons are nice and clicky as well. What the DLM 21 mesh does have going for it is a nifty hinge mechanism for the glass side panel, so there's no fiddling with thumb screws. Speaking of thumb screws, the backside panel's thumb screws unfortunately are not captive, which is a shame. There's room for 4 hard drives. You can install 2 2.5-inch hard drives on the side, or 2 3.5-inch hard drives in the removable cage behind the PSU shroud. That's right, removable. Additionally, the feet are also removable, making this a highly customizable little case should you want to mod it. Finally, the DLM21 mesh supports 330mm length GPUs and 165mm tall CPU coolers. It's mostly white with some black, which is great as I'm going for a black and white plus RGB look for this build. Because no fans come with the Dark Flash DLM21 mesh, I'm using a 3-pack of 𝐂𝐥𝐿 Magic and ARGB fans. I've used 𝐂𝐥𝐿 in the past, so when these went on sale for $25, I figured I'd try them. After opening them up to get a look, I will say they look cool, but they don't necessarily feel good. They're a bit flimsy compared to the other 𝐂𝐥𝐿 fans I used, which were the FS9001-ARGB fans. These Magic and ARGB fans come with a controller and hub, which is good as the non-standard connectors they use means I can't plug them into the 3-pin ARGB headers on the motherboard, or control them via 𝐂𝐫𝐡's Fusion software. Hopefully these fans do their job and keep the PC cool and at a reasonable noise level. Powering this computer is the EVGA B5 750W 80+ bronze PSU. It's fully modular and reasonably priced at around the $65 to $70 mark. If you want to go with an 80+ gold PSU, which I wouldn't blame you if you did, expect to pay around $40 to $55 more. 750 watts is plenty to power this PC, as the current estimated power draw is around 389 watts. I personally like to have a PSU that's nearly double what the draw is, so the PSU can maintain its efficiency. Of course, you'd be fine going with a 650 or 700 watt PSU, which could also save you some money. To keep things looking fresh and in line with the black and white theme of this build, I'll be using these easy DIY FAB PSU cable extensions. They're very affordable and also have received good customer reviews. Included in this unassuming box are a 24-pin extension, 3 PCIe 8 to 6+2 pin extensions, and 2 8 to 4+4 pin extensions. They're all 300mm long, use 18 AWG wires, and have cable combs. And they use braided nylon sleeving. I think they look pretty swish, to be honest, and I can't wait to use them. The final piece of this PC is the graphics card, and for it I'll be installing an AMD 6700 XT. As almost anyone interested in building a PC knows right now, this year has been terrible for GPUs. They're either out of stock or being scalped for insane amounts. This GPU should retail for $479.99, and if you ever find it for that, consider yourself very lucky. Unfortunately, the MSRP price has never really been a reality. For most of the year, 6700 XTs were being sold for around $900, either through actual retailers, which is insane, or through eBay. Right now, the average price on eBay seems to be around $750, which is good as this means prices are on the decline compared to what they were in the summer. My winning bid, which I totally didn't think I would be the final one, was $689. When I woke up the next morning, I looked at my phone and saw the notification I had the winning bid. Considering the seller had a 0 rating, this purchase was definitely a risk. But when I got it, the box was still sealed. I opened up the GPU, inspected it, and immediately tested it. It worked without a problem. And now it's going to be put to use in this build. These are the parts for the RG Zebra build, as I'm calling it. Why that name? I want to go with a black and white theme that also incorporates RGB elements from the fans, CPU cooler, and RAM. So all the parts were picked with that in mind. Granted, the GPU deviates from that scheme a tad, but I don't think it'll be too bad. What do you think about the parts I chose for this PC? What changes would you make to either save money or get more bang for the buck? Let me know in the comments down below. Alright, enough yammering, let's get to building. And we're back. The PC is built, and not without too many issues either. This building, the physical building, went pretty much without a hitch for the most part. I will say the ezdiy-fab cable extensions were amazing. Easy to put in the cable combs, easy to train them, really nice. Super happy with those. As you can see here, I'm rocking 3 shades of white lights. The 𝐂𝐥𝐿 fans themselves are a cooler blue light. The 𝐓𝐡𝐞 fan is more of an actual white, and then the Crucial Ballistics white is more eggshell, or almost getting into like the orangey, yellowy, reddish area. Kind of annoyed about that. Now the 𝐂𝐥𝐿 fans, while I said initially with the parts choosing they felt flimsy, they push a good amount of air and they're fairly quiet. Everything is controlled through this remote, so if I want to increase the fan speed, this I thought was the lighting speed for the modes, but it's actually for the fans. So if I just push up, you can start to hear they are blowing more air. If I want to go quiet, just use this. The colors on the remote don't necessarily correspond to what they are. Like for instance, to me this is purple, but it goes to blue. To me this is pink. That's kind of close, but it's more of the purple. The actual other purple color looks more like a cyan, and then the actual what I would call blue is just, it's a light blue. So it's kind of funny, but the white is at least good. Honestly, I think the front 2 lights compared to the last other one, those might be more pure white compared to this, but I'm not 100% sure. One of the things I am happy about is that all the white from the cooler to the case matches. So the paint that was used is of the same color, which I'm really happy with. I was kind of worried about the paint coming off from screwing things in on this. Some definitely with the power supply got scratched, but it's okay. So you're not going to see that anyway. The metal is not the thickest. It's kind of a flimsy case in certain regards. Once everything's put together, it's pretty solid. I was also very worried about the cooler being too tall, because at one point from my perspective, I was like, oh God, is that actually poking out? So I tested it and it was fine. I should have actually looked ahead of time at how tall this cooler was, but it's clearly okay. Everything fits well. The fans are good. I could honestly do with a 3rd front fan just to make it look better, but I'm okay with the 3 fans as it is. I don't think you would need a top fan for additional exhaust. I think 3 in the front would be fantastic, to be honest, and then 1 back, and then this, obviously. I'm not a huge fan of the white cabling for the fans against a black motherboard, but hey, it is what it is, and hopefully I'm not drowning you out here with the audio. I tried to cable manage it as best I could. Because of that daisy chain ARGB, it's a little weird, a little awkward, but I got it to look as best I could. Speaking of cable management, not the best in this case in terms of hiding things. The cables from the front I/O kind of poke out a little bit. They're not as clean as I would like them to be. I could have definitely used some cable tie points on the front edge of the case to help with that. The back side was perfect for cable management. The CPU cable and the fan cable here, although you can kind of see it jut out, again, I'll get pictures. From the front side, on the back, it was fantastic. The hard drive cage, I could have probably taken out, but I was able to stuff excess cables there, which was great as well. So overall, this thing shut very well. There was enough depth in the case for it to be managed nicely. I just wish there were some better tie-down points. Also, I think, especially to go with the black and white theme, some black grommets would have been fantastic here. Unfortunately, my black and white theme is kind of thwarted by a few things. One, the variations of white on the fans and the RAM. And then secondly, you cannot seemingly control this Radeon logo on the 6700 XT. I did some research. There is some software from Cooler Master, but it kept telling me or asking me to plug in my AMD device, which I thought was weird because it is plugged in. So I don't know. Maybe if you know of a way to control this light, let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, you can unplug the header to turn it off, or you can just get some black electrical tape and cover it. But I'm just gonna leave it as is now. It's nice. It's not too in my face. It's not blinking or anything like that, so I'm good to go there. Updating the BIOS using QFlash, easy peasy. However, I accidentally kept installing subsequent BIOSes for the wrong motherboard. I, for whatever reason, have a tab open to the Aorus Elite. I think it's because I have that, and I'm going to do a review on that later. So I just had the tab open, and I accidentally selected that BIOS. So Windows would not install at all. I kept getting stuck on the Aorus logo or my official Windows installer disk, not the media creation tool that I created for you on a USB drive, would stick at the Windows logo. So eventually, I figured out I had the wrong BIOS installed. I went and got the Aorus Pro P BIOS. I installed the F10, which had the first 5000 series support. Still didn't work. Said, okay, fine, let's go to F12. Still didn't work. And then just said, screw it. Jumped all the way up to F14. Actually, no, scratch that. Those two were for the Elite. Sorry, the AC Elite. I think all I did was I got the F10 for the Aorus Pro P, and then immediately updated it to the F14 after that, and I was able to get Windows installed, not a problem. Another issue I had was, for whatever reason, it wasn't recognizing my NVMe drive, so I had to unscrew it, plug it back in, unplug it, and plug it back in, and it worked fine. Speaking of that NVMe drive, that 1 terabyte drive has a good 850 gigs left after the OS and some programs that I installed on there, including Gigabyte apps and hardware monitor, CPU-Z, etc. So plenty of storage left for quite a few key programs should you need it, and some games. Having said that, I would still recommend getting an SSD or another NVMe drive, PCIe 4.0, for mass storage. Try and save up for a 2 terabyte, for either of those. For the NVMe drive, you'll be spending a lot of money. For the SSD, if you go that route, you'll be spending maybe $150 to $200, I want to say, something like that. So yeah, that's what I would do. Other than that, I think the build went okay. I think it went pretty good. I hate the little stupid, and I don't have it plugged in right now, the little slot thing here. I don't know what it's for. It's annoying. It covers the PCI slot, so it's just an additional thing you have to unscrew. It's stupid, in my opinion. In the BIOS, setting up I'm jumping. The stream of consciousness, Seth here. In the BIOS, it was super easy to set up XMP, super easy to find resizable bar and 4G decoding, and enable both of those so that I could have resizable bar support for the GPU. What else? What did I set up there? I don't think I tweaked the fans a little bit in the BIOS. And stay tuned, I will be doing a video for getting to know the BIOS as well as the Gigabyte apps. As far as the RGB goes, the Asia Horse is easy. Getting the motherboard and the RAM was a complete nightmare. I spent 3 or 4 hours troubleshooting RGB Fusion 2.0. For whatever reason, it would not work. It would hang up on the please wait logo or whatever as the app was starting to load up, and would not finish loading at all. It would just crash. I uninstalled it, I reinstalled it, I cleared the registry, reinstalled it again. I uninstalled the App Center, uninstalled all the other apps, reinstalled everything. It just didn't matter. And for whatever reason, it worked. I don't know what I did other than install Crucial's mod RGB software, but then it worked. Controlling, and another stupid thing with the RGB software, if I had a mouse plugged in and then I unplugged it, it's plugged in right now, but if I unplug the mouse, the RAM lights stop working. Why? Like, what the hell, man? It makes no sense to me, and honestly, it just makes me want to stick with iQOO all the more. I have had very few problems with Corsair's ecosystem. I haven't dabbled in Lian Li's, I haven't done EK's system, or extensively a bunch of other systems. I have dabbled with ASRock's Polychrome, hate it. Now that I've gotten to RGB Fusion, it's okay once it works. There's not a lot of features, not a lot of presets that you can do, and customization is not the greatest. Not to the extent of iQOO. I really wish Motherboards would just Corsair would either open up their ecosystem and allow other motherboards to have plugins for it, or something, because honestly, it's almost like an afterthought, these software. Like, oh, you have RGB, you can control your stuff. Not really. RGB is established, whether you hate it or love it. It is established at this point in time. And the software support for it needs to be more encompassing and needs to be better by the manufacturers. This is a Gigabyte motherboard. It has one zone of lighting, but it has 4 RGB headers. I should be able to control my RGB. Don't know why it's such a task. Anyway, that's the rant. So, as far as the case, I was reminded why building in an MATX, while it's nice and compact, it's also a pain in the butt. You don't have a lot of access here. So anytime I had to get to the headers that are under here, I have to uninstall this graphics card, which after a while, I'm worried that I might ruin the PCI slot or whatever. So building in an MATX case has its trade-offs, right? Additionally, for whatever reason, my front USB 3.0 header port is not really working. I'm also reminded, because of how stupidly large and bulky that cord is that connects into the motherboard, why I always invest in those low profile cables, and I should have done that again here, but I didn't. All in all, the dark flash case is nice. The hinge mechanism for the glass and the magnets that it attaches to are very swish. It's easy to take off the front panel, which also acts as your filter. Installing the fans was pretty easy. Installing the motherboard just required me to redistribute the standoffs a little bit. They weren't where I needed them to be for the MATX motherboard. Some MATX motherboards have their holes for the screws in different places, so just keep that in mind should you get one. And then there were 2 extras in the goodie bag of screws, so I had to make sure those were installed as well. One thing I hate and I'm very disappointed in, especially for the price of this case that doesn't come with fans, is the non-reusable PCIe slots. I'm missing one because the top 2 were punched out when I got this case. Whoever returned this, I have a feeling didn't return it just for some really minor things that they probably did themselves. Or they couldn't get GPU, I don't know. Anyway, so I put in an order to Amazon for some white PCIe covers. Fingers crossed the paint matches, but at least that way I can punch this out and then have 2 matching PCIe covers instead of an open hole. Sorry about that, my battery just died. So what was I saying? Okay, so yeah, the light modes. There are a bunch of them. So here you can see 2 colors stacking. It's white onto blue. And if I keep going, it just kind of does different color combinations. I thought the speed to 2 speed buttons would be for the fan colors, but that doesn't seem to be it. However, there is a brightness, so if I want to, I can turn it down and it goes up. I don't know how many levels there are, which is annoying. I'm going to assume 10 because that generally is what it is. But yeah, you can keep going. So there's so much. There's a general breathing one too, where it just changes colors, pulsing. But I don't know where that's at. And yeah, there's a lot. It's kind of crazy. There's more combinations through the remote control in that box than there is on RGB Fusion. Let's just put it that way. And I don't know, I'm just gonna keep going. Dun, dun, dun. Looks like it's going the other way now. All right, so if you get bored of that, because there's just that many, you can just click your button, or if you do auto, it goes into rainbow mode, and it's more of a pastel-y rainbow. So getting all the rainbow modes to line up will possibly be a trial. And this speaks to the pitfall of using multiple different sources of RGB components. So for instance, my personal build, it is all controlled through iCUE, but not all Corsair. So I have Corsair memory, I've got Corsair fans, I have one Corsair RGB strip, and then I have the rest is all EKWB stuff. But that is then using an adapter cable plugged into the Corsair boxes, which allows me to make sure that everything is controlled through iCUE. That's the gloriousness of an ecosystem. And hate Apple all you want, but when you create an ecosystem, things tend to, as Jensen says,
everything just works.
Not always. iCUE has its trouble still, but it can. So yeah, so we'll just go to white here. And I think that is really it, other than going over some gaming benchmarks, right? Let's do some of that. So it's a new day, new set of clothes, the benchmarks are done. Speaking of, what do you think about those benchmarks? I think they proved that this is quite the capable 1080p gaming beast. And granted, you'll take a little bit of a hit if you go up to 1440p, but if you dial in the game settings just right, you'll be able to have a great gaming experience at that resolution as well. What do you think about my Spider-Man theme here? Anyway, I already said quite a bit in the last portion of the video, so I don't want to ramble on too much, and I'll just leave you with this. I'm very happy with the parts that I was able to gather for this build and the price that I paid. I think just around $1,600 isn't too bad for the quality of components that you're getting and the quality of the gaming experience, as well as the overall speed of the machine. If you're able to cobble together parts for about what I paid for, you're going to have a great machine for the cost. Granted, the GPU is, of course, always, as with this whole year, the X factor. So finding a GPU comparatively to the 6700 XT, which would be either that, the 3060 Ti, or a 3070, at around that $680 price mark is going to be tough, but it is doable. So just keep that in mind, keep scouring the internet, either go through the Newegg Shuffle, eBay, or wherever you can, or Best Buy. Again, Best Buy tends to do drops on Thursdays, as does AMD on their official store. So keep that in mind. I think it's like 8 a.m. Central Standard Time for AMD. So they have a queue system and blah, blah, blah. So if you're lucky, you can get one at a reasonable price. And that's really the only thing holding back PC building in general. And it sucks. I'm not gonna lie, it sucks. I got very lucky in all the GPUs I was able to purchase for the builds I intended to do this year. And so I'm just gonna leave it at that. So I do wish all of you the best of luck in getting that GPU that you do want for an affordable price. Anyway, I think I'm gonna leave it here. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you liked the video, hit that like button. If you didn't like it, hit that dislike button 2 times. Show your support for the channel by clicking subscribe, and don't forget to hit that notification icon so you don't miss out on any future content. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave them below, and I'll try and get back to you as soon as I can. I'm Seth, and I'll see you next time in the middle of nowhere.